Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Reemployment webinar sessions. My name is Barbara Alvarez. I am with Church by the Sea. Firstly, let me thank Jim Sherm. They are the Greater Miami Society for Human Resources Management. They are our partners in putting these webinars on for you, in getting this critical information out to the community at this time when we are seeing so much unemployment due to the pandemic. Let's see, I want to introduce our speaker today. Firstly, we are going to talk about interviewing and how to land that job. And our speaker is Pilar Proctor. She is not only a member of Jim Sherm, she is on the board of directors. She has served as director of professional development programs and is currently vice president of Jim Sherm. She has decades of human resources experience at the global level, working with large multinational companies such as ExxonMobil, Panasonic, and others. And in addition, she has a Master of Science in Human Resources Management, among other degrees and certifications. So welcome, Pilar, and thank you so much for being with us. Go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Good morning, everybody. And on behalf of the Greater Miami Society of HR Management, in collaboration with Church by the Sea, we welcome you to session 4 of our series of reemployment virtual workshops. When we started putting this together, we got really excited talking to Barbara, and we said we can certainly help the community land the job, look for the job. There's so many things that we can share with you. And we said we need to talk about interviewing and the resume and the networking and where to find the jobs. And soon we realized we can't do that in 1 hour, obviously. So it wouldn't do service to any of the topics. So that's how we came up with this series of 4 episodes that you can obviously rewind and review at any time, as Barbara mentioned. I'm going to start my presentation here. There. This is my background that you can, I'm in LinkedIn, you can find me. I have more years that I'm going to confess in human resources. I am going to share with you my experiences from the HR side, from the interviewing side, and hopefully I will be able to give you some tips to do's and don'ts and how to prepare for that interview that you want to land. As Barbara mentioned, this is the last session, session 4 of the series of workshops that we've done in the past 3 weeks with my colleagues, Robert Garcia and Ana Diaz and Barbara Ramirez. And you are very much encouraged to go back and review. Those of you who have been following us for the past 3 weeks, go back and check some of the details that you think you remember, but you don't remember by now. And those of you who are joining us for the first time, we encourage you to go back and look at them, because you will see how they build up on each other, from looking at the job, looking at the resume, preparing the resume, networking, and finally going into that interview day. So we're going to recap a little bit on the previous sessions. Then we're going to get all the way to the types of interviews on the day of the interview. And hopefully we'll be able to give you some tools on how to prepare for the interview, review the job posting, research the company, and we're going to talk about structured behavioral interview. That sounds a little more sophisticated than what it really is, trust me. We're going to talk about the STAR method of asking questions and answering questions. And then we're going to look at some tricky questions that you may run into, so you're not blindsided and you know what to say or what not to say on that. At the end, of course, I'm going to allow enough time. I don't want to go too fast, to allow enough time to have questions and answers. So to do a little bit of a recap, my colleagues, Robert Garcia, took us to the session of career exploration. We talked about, what do you really want to do? Is this an opportunity? We know that things are tough out there, but is this actually an opportunity where you said, actually, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to go in a whole different direction. And where are the jobs? Where do we go for that? There's a lot of opportunities out there. And he shared with us some of the slides where a lot of postings for thousands of jobs that are out there right now looking for people. And then Ana Diaz took us to the very important part of the resume. What do we need to look at? What are these resume is supposed to look like, the chronological, what type of resume, how to target it. Remember that it's going to be a machine first before is read by a person. So the keywords, etc., and how to target the company. And then Marta Ramirez took us to the networking skills, how to communicate, how to read people, how to prepare your elevator speech. Very important, in 10 to 15 seconds to say, this is who I am, this is what I've done, this is what I'm looking for, and how you can help me. And very, very important. Here is a link, and as Barbara mentioned, we encourage you again to go back and look at all of the sessions. Again, they build on each other. And it is for me now to wrap it all in a bow and deliver it to you with session 4, which is all the day we've prepared, and we are now at the interview. So we're going to talk about the types of interviews. It used to be a time where the interview, the typical interview, would be on a person-to-person basis. Well, things have changed this year, obviously. Chances are everybody's going to go through a virtual interview or a phone interview before we actually have a person-to-person interview. I'm going to have a couple of tips at the end, a little bit more on the video interviewing to help you with that. But you may run into a phone interview. One tip that I would give you there, even if you can't see the other person on the other side of the phone, smile. Somehow people feel it. People know that you're smiling, that you're happy, that you have the energy for that. You may be asked to come to do a task as a team. When companies are looking for teamwork and they have a lot of project work, they actually put candidates to put a puzzle together, some type of a team approach, and they evaluate on your interaction as a team. Right now in 2020, as things have changed, chances are you may actually end up in a virtual interview or a Zoom interview. And I have a couple of tips at the end of that. One of the types of interviews that can be a little intimidating would be the panel interview, where you feel like you've been bombarded by so many interviewers. You know, it's important to keep an eye contact on each one and address them. And it's a little intimidating. And sometimes that's the purpose, just to see how you work under pressure. And then you have your traditional face-to-face interview in person and how to prepare. So be prepared. You don't know, and you can ask certainly at the time of the interview what type of interview you're going to have. Okay? Now, very important, when you get the phone call, and you probably are applying to many jobs as possible, because you do want to finalize with one job, you may get the phone call to schedule an interview, and you're thinking, I don't even remember that job. What job did I apply for? It's important for you to go back. If it was a week ago or a month ago, 2 months ago, we don't know. Go back and review the job posting again. Look, are you looking for a job, or is this the job that you really, really want? And ask yourself, how do I match this job description? How would I hire me for this? And start thinking of the skills and competencies and experience that they're posting, and how you match those things. Because those are how you're going to build your preparation for the interview. Research the company, not just the website. Look at the company's values. For example, you know, I'm a reformed smoker. Yes, long, long time ago, I used to smoke. So I don't think there will be enough money in the world for me to work for a tobacco company. I just don't believe in that, you know, and I'm a reformed smoker, so I'm on the other side of it. I hate smoking. So I would never work for a tobacco company, for example. What is the culture? What are the reviews? Go to, you know, Freedom of Expression, Glassdoor, and you can really hear what other employees, current and former employees, have to say about that company. You want to get a 360 approach to really understand this company, not only the website. Of course, in the website, you're going to be able to prepare your questions as well. You want to have smart questions at the end of the interview to ask the interviewer about the company. So prepare and do your questions back. Robert shared with us one of the slides. He posted a lot of the jobs that are out there. And he shared Indeed is one of the websites where you can go and look for however many jobs. And actually, I took this one, and we're going to pretend that we're going to interview for this job, the customer service representative for Chewy. It so happens that they are in Florida. I did not know that. So by looking at the posting, the first thing that we want to do is look at what are the competencies that they're looking for. They don't necessarily want somebody that has already worked in the pet distribution industry. They're looking for certain competencies. And I'm going to read this to you. Let me move this a little bit. They're looking for somebody that can engage directly with customers. Ding, ding, there's a keyword there. Helping them shop for a new pet to find that perfect chew toy or even problem solving. Ding, ding, there's another keyword there when everything doesn't go as planned. So problem solving and customer service. Okay, I've done that in the past. Think about it. Research and problem solve, there it is again, to determine appropriate solutions for the customer and follow up as needed to resolve issues via email or phone calls or other forms of communication. Ding, ding, there's another keyword there, communications. Those are the key competencies that they're looking for. Go above and beyond to wow our customers. There it is again. We are not looking for order takers. We are searching for those who can engage with our customers and think critically to help customers and get creative with solutions. I love this job. I always wanted to apply for it myself. So if we look at this posting, there are 3 competencies that resonate in every sentence. It was customer service, problem solving, and what was the other one? I sure hope that at least one of you said communications. I can't see you, but I hope that at least one of you said communications. So remember that customer service, problem solving, and communications. All right. Think about these 3 competencies because this is going to be a little bit of your homework at the end of this session. Chances are you're going to run into what is called a structured behavioral interview. Now, this sounds a little more sophisticated than what it really is. The structured behavioral interview method, it just means that you're going to have the same questions for all of the candidates for this position. You have a structured format. Chances are you have a form that you're going to fill out with specific questions. And the behavioral side is that we're looking for something that is not hypothetical. As an interviewer, any answer that, any question which does what, an answer that says, well, I would do it, I could do it, or if I had, it's a hypothetical question. What we're really looking for is something that you have already demonstrated in the past. That's what the structured behavioral interview method is looking for. The same questions to compare on the same scale, all the candidates, and to look for certain situations where in the past you have demonstrated the competencies that we're looking for: problem solving, customer service, and communication skills. Okay, and that's how you're going to answer the questions as well. So the structured behavioral interview helps us peel the onion. You know, getting a job or hiring somebody is like getting married blindfolded. Remember, we're going to spend more time with the people that we work with than the people that we love and live with. So it is upon the interviewer to peel the onion as much as possible to really make sure that the person that we have in front of all the 25, 30, 100 candidates that we are interviewing is the right person for the job. So the structured behavioral interview helps us peel that onion and to get a little bit more to the core of the person in an average time, 1 hour. So we want to know something that you've done already in the past. Past performance is the best predictor of future performance. We have standardized questions based on the specific job needs. There will be no question about underwater basket weaving, for example. Assess candidates based on already demonstrated behaviors. And that's the purpose of the structured behavioral interview. And that's how you want to prepare your answers, remember. So it helps us to have the same questions, same order, compare candidates on the same scale. That way we can compare apples to apples, because as humans, we also tend to have certain biases that we want to control. And if we have a structured interview, we're going to be able to have the same metric, the same standard for all candidates. And we don't have any hypotheticals. Would, could, should, if. It's not going to give me what I'm looking for. We're looking for something that would say, I did that. And that's how you will prepare. And it's based on the job descriptions and business goals. I have here a little link, and you can always Google and YouTube behavioral interview, customer service, and you can actually see live interview samples if you want to go further on that. Feel free to click on that later on. Okay. Now, we have a method that is called the STAR method of asking questions and answering questions. So we want to see the picture. The questions are going to be, give me an example where in the past you've done this problem solve. And then I'm going to give you some memory triggers about that. So we want to know about what was the situation, what were you responsible for, what was your task, what did you do, and what was the result. And that's what we're going to be looking for with that type of question. And your answer will be, well, guess what? Once upon a time, this was the situation. I was responsible for this. This is what I did, and that was the result. And for every question, you can have a STAR answer as well. Now, remember, we're talking about problem solving, customer service, and communication skills. But what does that mean? You know? So when I interview people, and I've been using this my entire life, more years than I'm going to confess, interviewing candidates. And I cannot think of a job out there that doesn't require a certain level of problem solving. I don't think it would be called work otherwise, or customer service. Everybody out there is serving somebody else, whether it's products or services or a third party or the community. We are all serving somebody. And then communication skills. It's not just for work, it's for any human interaction with our lives in general. Communications are critical, of course, to be able to communicate in a written form, in a verbal form, and however we do to get our point across. Okay. So when I interview candidates, I look for problem solving. And I usually say, give me a situation where in the past you demonstrated problem solving. And by that, I mean, and I give you a couple of memory triggers. Hopefully the memory trigger will tell you, will help you go back in the past to a situation where you either anticipated a problem. So this is the typical example where you said, guys, hold on. You look at a situation, you wait. If we do this, we're going to have a problem tomorrow or in a year or sometime in the future. And you anticipated a problem. And maybe somebody came and said, oh, I'm glad you thought about it. So think about things like that that have already happened to you. I'm so glad that you thought about it. Or if it happens, because nobody listened to you, you said, I told you. So it's a classic, I told you that was going to happen. Think about where you anticipated a problem in the past. And it doesn't have to be, again, in the specific industry that you're applying for. Is you solve a problem, you anticipated a problem. Or a situation when you resolve an emergency. Your boss wasn't there. And then somebody came and a client came and they needed something. And then you said, well, I can't freeze. And you took a decision on the spot with limited time and limited information. And then when your boss came, you said, oh my God, where were you? This happened. You were not here, but I did this. Right or wrong, it doesn't matter. But you did not freeze. And that's what's important to know, that you dealt with an emergency right on the spot. Or you looked at a situation where you created more than two options and you said, actually, guys, we have three options, A, B, and C. And if we do A and you came with all the consequences, and then we do B, we have all of these, and we do C, we have this. And you came up with the best answer based on an holistic approach or a 360 approach to solving a problem. So again, think about one or two examples where in the past you demonstrated problem solving, where you either anticipated a problem, solved an emergency, or created options to solve a problem. Very specific in the past, and have those ready with. I'm going to share with you one of my experiences. You know, in HR, we're very structured and follow the structure interview. I'm a big proponent of behavioral structure interviews, and I never, if any, ever break my own rules. But about 2 years ago, I had a candidate and came to the office, and I walked around and I saw the candidates lined up, sweaty with their resume at hand, and nervous. Of course, everybody's nervous at the time of the interview. And then I looked at, and there was one young gentleman that was perfectly dressed, professional with a tie and that, and was wearing sneakers. And I thought, oh, okay, well, follow the process, right? So I'm following the process. And again, I say, give me a situation where in the past you demonstrated problem solving, you solve an emergency. And he said, actually, that happened to me this morning. He said, once I got the appointment for this interview, I moved from LA. I arrived last night and with a bunch of shipping boxes, and I couldn't find my shoes. I didn't want to be late for the interview, so I came here with my sneakers. And right before I walked in, my wife was able to find the shoes, walked in, I changed shoes, and I was able to walk into the interview with the right shoes. And I looked at his shoes, and he was wearing professional shoes. So he thought about every possibility, didn't want to be late. He was dressed, the wife was looking for the shoes, arrived, and he walked into the interview with the shoes. I've never in my life have done this before. I closed the book and I said, "You're hired." He thought he was joking. He looked at me and said, "No, no, no, you're hired. See you Monday." I couldn't believe it. And I've never done that. That was one of the success stories about this type of interview. Think about customer service. Think about the situation when you have anticipated the needs of a customer, maybe the flight attendant, or if you're working in a hotel, you look at a family that have a little baby, and you're thinking, okay, chances are they're going to need to warm up the baby bottle, right? I'm going to have warm water ready, or maybe I'm going to tell them, I already have some warm water in case you need it, just in case I already have it. So you anticipated the needs of a customer. Or you went above and beyond the expectations of the job to the point that the customer sent a thank you note. They sent a note to your boss. They sent you a chocolate, something to say, thank you so much. You went above and beyond, not just your regular customer service, like you went above and beyond the expectations of the job, and make notes of that. Or a situation where you had to deal with an angry customer. How do you do that? Well, I yell louder than him. Haha. No, what you want to do is say, actually, I acknowledge the customer. This was a situation. The customer was angry because his reservation in the hotel was lost and he had traveled for 15 hours, and it happens. So this was a situation. I was in charge of the reception. And then what I did is I first gave him water, I sat him down, I gave him complimentary drink, etc. And then I figured out how to solve the reservation, and we gave him a complimentary upgrade. That is how you deal with an angry customer, for example. And communication skills. Prepare written instructions for somebody. Instead of saying, please fix, you can actually say step 1, step 2, step 3, open this, etc. Where maybe a manual, where you've written a manual, or prepare to give bad news to somebody. In this posting that we saw, it was problem solving when things don't go as expected. So think about a situation where you actually had to tell a customer, it didn't work, we couldn't do it, we're going to do something. Prepare to give bad news to someone. So this is your homework, by the way. After this, just start making a couple of notes and think about your past experiences where you can have an example of where you solved a problem in the past, where you demonstrated customer service, and where you've demonstrated effective communications. Okay? And again, we can have more questions at the end if you want. All right. So we're going to go into a couple of the tricky questions here. If one of the questions, and you think that it's a very random question, but it's not, when it says, okay, tell me about yourself. A lot of interviewers open with that. Just tell me about yourself. You want to talk about your elevator speech. Martha actually helped us with preparing your elevator speech. What are the 10, 15 seconds that you want to tell people, this is who I am, this is what I've done, this is what I want, etc. Very clear, 3-4 sentences, etc. Emphasize on how you've done the job. Oh, I have this many years in the service industry, not in the pet service industry, but in the service industry. And I have helped clients with this, this, and that. And you can emphasize some of those behaviors that you already practice, okay? And give an example of a problem that you solved. Like last year, it happened to me with the reservation, for example. It is not a confession, and it doesn't have to be long. I've had candidates that started telling me their entire life. Somebody actually woke up crying. Just got divorced, and you don't really know what to do with that. And it's not a personal story, and it's not a resume summary. We already have your resume. We already read the resume. You are there in front of the interview because we already saw that. We already know that. Have your resume with you because if you want to refer back to say, well, in this day and this day when I work in this company, you can certainly do that, but you don't have to go through the entire resume. Okay. Now, there's a couple of tricky questions out there that are, question marks on Title VII, which are discriminatory questions based on race, gender, sexual orientation, national origin, etc. And we need to be very fine on how to respond to those questions. It happens a lot, especially in Miami, when the job posting says Spanish, the languages, for example. And instead of saying, do you speak Spanish? Do you speak Portuguese? They say, where are you from? Well, that doesn't really mean anything. But if the question is because they're looking for, do you speak Spanish? You can certainly answer with, oh, well, you may or may not, you don't have to answer, by the way, but you can say something like, well, actually, I actually speak Spanish if that's where you asked me before. So be very, very delicate on how you answer that question. You don't want to say, that's an illegal question. You can't ask me that because it's not going to turn out pretty good if you do it that way. But if you say, actually, well, I grew up speaking Spanish and I speak Spanish fluently. And that's the answer to, because I actually noticed that the job posting requires Spanish. And oh, by the way, I also speak Portuguese, you can say. When did you graduate? You can say, I graduated from such and such university with a degree of this, and the experience that I can apply for this is this. So answer based on the job posting and what you've done, how you've done the job before. Hopefully people know by now how to interview candidates, but you never know. You never know if it's somebody that really doesn't know what questions to ask. You can also, help with that. But what you want to do is emphasize on how you fit the job that they're looking for. Because the interviewer, what they want to do is fill the job. So that's where you want to help with that. That's another tricky question. Now, this is a good one. What is your weakness and what is your strength? In our experience, and I'm sure, the HR professionals, Robert, would agree with me, every time that we hear a candidate say, oh, one of my weaknesses is I'm a perfectionist. You don't know how many times we hear that on a weekly basis. And inside we go, oh, and inside our head we're going, oh, no. Think about a specific example that you have improved something, that you purposely said, I really need to work on this. And that's the example that you want to bring. Maybe you want to think about one of your performance reviews and how you address that. I'm going to share this with you. At one point and at the beginning of my career, one of the feedbacks that I received was, sometimes you just come a little too strong. And my answer was, who said that? And I thought, I think I know what you mean. I know how I can come across. And then how do I manage that? So don't fake it. Be honest. Don't elaborate too much. Like, oh, I'm just horrible. No, you just want to elaborate on one of those things that you're aware of yourself, that you're working on it, and how you are actually managing that. Don't elaborate again on pros. Be honest and be specific. Relate to the job expectations and indicate the lessons learned, things that I have learned in the past. If there was something that you learned at one point, you say, this was a weakness because I didn't see certain things, but then I learned and I apply that, and I always keep that in mind. So these are the things that you want to think about. Again, that's a cute Pinocchio. Don't fake it. We know. Now, on this, and there's a, why did you leave your last job? In 2020, chances are is because of COVID, and is not as that an answer as it maybe it used to be. Unless you're going to say, well, I was caught stealing, the answer really is not going to be very negative. what you don't want to do is you don't want to speak poorly. Well, they fired me because they did not value me or something like that. And you go, yeah, and don't elaborate too much. I tried and then they did. Just be a little positive, be honest. Well, there was a change of management, there was a restructuring or COVID, but go back and emphasize on the things as quickly as you can on the things that you learn. And I had a great time, and I still keep friends with the people that I work with. And what I learned was this that actually applies to this job: customer service. I had a situation where this happened, and I solved this problem, etc. And that's how you turn it into a positive. And some of your key accomplishments: I increased sales, or I received a employee of the month award, something that is a positive thing from the past employer. Florida and Miami are very, very small cities. Believe me, everybody knows everybody. Now, you want to have your interviews back to the interview. One of the things that you want to make sure you've mentioned at the end, and usually have, if you have any questions for me, you do want to have questions. If you've done your homework, your question is not going to be, do you have medical? Do you have 401k? What time do we do? What time do you open? You want to have questions that show the interviewer that you've done your homework. If you go back to Glassdoor and said, actually, I read something in Glassdoor that kind of, gave me a little bit of a question, and let the interviewer elaborate. You want to say, what will we accomplish in the first 3 months? So you want to say we because you want to visualize, and you want the interviewer to visualize you already working there. You're already thinking about and visualizing that you're there. And what would success look like in the first 3 months or 6 months of my employment here? Maybe who was working, how many people have worked in this job? If in the past year there's been 5 people in that job, I would really want to know why for that, because you're interviewing the company as well. It's not just they're interviewing you. And obviously questions from the website: are we expanding? Are we going? What are we doing? And a personal, professional question to the interviewer is, what has been your experience here? What are some of the things that you love about working here? What are some of the things that if you could, you would change tomorrow here? And let them talk also for you to get a little bit of a picture of the position in the company. Now, here's a couple of tricks. Be punctual. I shared with you before one of the success stories of the person that I just hired in the first 10 seconds. Be punctual. If the interview is at 1:30, be there by 1:15. If you have to drive there, drive there. If you haven't been there before, even if it's Uber, even if it's whatever, go there and make sure that you know where it is, where to park, etc. So you're not as stressed out the day off. If there is anything that happens, leave enough time. It's better to arrive early and maybe even stay in the bathroom for 20 minutes if you have to, but be punctual. There's nothing worse than a late candidate. Well, there's a couple other things that are bad. So be very, very punctual about it, but also allow for extra time. The longer the interview, the better the chances. We usually make the decision on the first impression, because again, we're humans, and the first 10 to 15 seconds of the candidate, we're thinking, yep, or nope. And then we spend the rest of the hour going through the process and convincing ourselves that we're right. Because again, that's a personal bias and everybody has it. So you want to make sure that you allow enough time. If the interview takes longer than expected, it's not a bad sign. There was a situation in the past where I had a candidate that walked in, looked at the watch and said, how long is this going to take? Because I have another appointment. And I thought, actually, it's not going to take long at all. Actually, it's not going to take at all. It's going to take the time that it takes for you to reach the door. And thank you so much for coming. Because what that told me is this person is really not interested in this job. It's just any job. And for that, I'd rather give it to somebody that really wants this job. So be careful with that. Have a good breakfast. Try to avoid carbs. carbs make you a little sloshy at the end. Protein will give you energy, but make sure that you do have a breakfast. Don't go hungry to an interview. The last thing that you want is your stomach go roar in the middle of an interview, and then your energy and your sugar levels will drop. So make sure that you do have a good protein breakfast. And if it's going to be a virtual interview, make sure that you test your video and your audio and everything works fine. If you look at my background, it's very clear. Again, interviewers, we are humans too. And sometimes we're distracted by the background of the candidate. Oh, look at all this cereal, or oh, there's a doggy. And we forget what the candidate was saying. So the less distractions that you have, is just a little degree, that's it, the better it is. And again, test the video. You know how many times we've actually interviewed an eye or the nostrils or the neck of somebody. See how you look in the camera. Look at the camera as I am looking at the camera right now, because I know you can see me. I can't see you, but you can see me. So all of those are tricks and tips for interview. Okay. Now we open for questions. I hope I didn't go too fast, but we do have about 15 minutes. Any questions? And Barbara, if you want to come in and read the questions, we're open. And questions are the path to learning. There's no dumb question out there.
Thank you so much, Pilar. So thorough. We absolutely enjoyed your stories, and you were really thorough. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions? Please go ahead and put them in the chat box, or the Q&A box rather, and we will go ahead and go over anything that you have questions on. I love the story about the guy that you hired on the spot.
I've done that in my life before. I mean, he thought I was joking. And I'm HR, structure, follow the process. And he literally came from LA the night before. And this is another thing. The first person that you're interviewing with is the receptionist, because she or he will always keep an eye, and she will come and tell me, this person was late, this person was rude, this person would did everything, this person was really nice. And she came and said, something really weird happened. And I go, what happened? I said, well, there was a candidate there. He ran out, dropped his shoes. All I saw was that he just threw his shoes on the floor, and then he walked in. I go, well, that was strange. And when he walked in, and I literally closed the book, and I said, you're hired. He thought I was joking. I said, no, see you Monday. You'll get the offer by today, before the end of the day today. You're hired. And he was a star performer. I've never done that.
Wouldn't it be great if we were all that lucky during this COVID time to get hired on the spot?
Like that. I mean, HR, we could all write books about, 2 books, The Candidate from Hell and You're Hired. That would be the 2 books that I would write when it comes to experiences in interviewing.
Now, you talked about the interview. What if the person has a bunch of interviews? Are these things that you covered, do they apply to every interview? If say you have 4 or 5 interviews, are these you have to have the same preparation?
Yeah, and Robert went through that. Remember that you want to target what you're looking for. But there could be many jobs that have that. If it's a customer service representative, you want to target, and you want to make sure that you apply for the jobs that you can do, that you can have, not just any job. So you do want to target that, but it doesn't mean that it's just one. It's like fishing. The bigger the net, the better chances you're going to have to find the job that you're looking for. Obviously, you do want to make sure that you do target those jobs that you're qualified, that that you want, that you would be happy. As I said, if it's a tobacco company, even if they offer however much money, we wouldn't. So,
what about if you
just be selective?
What about if you have more than one interview with the same company? So let's say you have you find yourself having 5 interviews with the same company. Is it the same level of preparation all the way through?
Yes, it is the same level of it, but it will probably be different. If you are doing your behavioral interview, it could be with the HR or with the recruiter. But if you are going to interview with a hiring manager, for example, that's going to be a little more specific on the job. So make sure that you have questions that, or answers that will be more technically related.
Mm.
You know,
How,
if it's an IT job and you're looking at job description, you want to make sure that you have examples that the hiring manager or whoever will be your boss will probably be looking for on the technical side as well. Using the
okay.
same method, STAR method, and the be specific. You know, I actually implemented an entire system with such and such company, with SAP, and you want to be very specific on that. Yes. And it's not
Okay.
unusual to have more than one interview. It's actually a good sign. It's a filter in one step and the next step and the next step. Depends on each company's process.
Talk to me about follow-up after the interview.
Very important. Make sure that you have the business card. Always remember to ask for the person's business card. And no sooner than the very next day, you want to send a note and say, thank you so much for your time. I am even more interested about this opportunity, and emphasize one of the key points that says, I can do this job. And some of the things that really impress you about the company. I love the idea of the initiative that we will have doing this, and say how you can do that job. Following up with a note. Many times when you have two perfect candidates and you don't know which one to choose, the winner is the one that does the thank you note and the follow-up note.
Great to know.
Many times we've done that. Yep.
Okay.
I'm telling you a lot of HR secrets, by the way.
What if a person has no job experience? This is one of the questions in the Q&A. What if the person has no job experience? How do they answer those questions in the interview?
Very good question. Think about school. Think about your internship. Think about situations where you have solved problems. There are problems that we solve on a daily basis. You don't want to get too personal, but you can actually say, well, you know, I was actually in an internship, and I realized that we were going to have a big meeting, and I was in charge of photocopying, and then I realized that we were running out of paper, and I knew that we were going to have a meeting, so I ordered the paper before. I actually hired somebody that came from an internship, and it was for an HR administrator position, and the experience for this individual came from just graduating from school, and she did an internship at the zoo. So you would think from the zoo to HR, I know Robert's probably gonna have a funny joke about that, like, well, so this person said, well, problem solving, actually, I realized that there was one of the trash cans that somebody threw a cigarette, and it started catching fire. So the first thing that I did is move the animals, and then I reported it. I first moved, and I thought, okay, that's really good problem solving. So it doesn't have to be specifically about an experience in the job, but something that shows those three competencies: problem solving, customer service, and communication skills.
Okay. So we have another couple of...
School. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish the thought, Pilar.
School, for example, when you have work and work deliverables as a team, projects as teams. You know, we had this and we drawn on this, and somebody got sick, and I did this, and there's always an example in the past where you've solved a problem, or you helped somebody, or you served somebody, or you communicated effectively.
Thank you. Okay, another couple of questions in the Q&A. What if you don't have the experience or know how to answer the question?
Good question. Practice. Practice, practice, practice. If you need to record yourself, do it. If you need to talk to the mirror, do it, because that's the best way for you to build that confidence. So if I give you the question, give me an example in the past you demonstrated problem solving where you anticipated a problem, answer to yourself in the mirror. Even if your family thinks that you're going cuckoo. Sometimes you just go, I'm practicing for my interview. My family's used to that by now already. They look at me and go, okay. So practice. That will give you the confidence once you are in front of the interviewer, and you will be able to draw from that to face the interviewer, because we know it's very intimidating. We know that it is very stressful. We know that you're nervous, but the more you practice, the more confident you're going to be.
That's great. I'm a big believer in role playing, Pilar.
Oh yeah.
Mhm. Okay, the next.
Yeah, sorry. Let me
Uh-huh.
just follow up to that, and Pilar, you've done a great job. I think it's very valuable, the information you've shared. The other thing is sometimes you don't have the experience or don't know how to answer the question, and I think honesty is the best policy. Be
Absolutely.
very honest and clear and say, I really don't know that, but I'm willing to learn. I
Absolutely.
have experience in other areas that perhaps are transferable, and because I have this base of knowledge, I could definitely, I consider myself a quick learner. I'll be able to capture the information, because you don't want to assume or have them assume that you know it, and then you get the job, and then unfortunately.
Absolutely. And like I said in one of the slides, don't fake it. We know. We we know. Don't fake it. Say, actually, or you can ask them to repeat the question in a different way to say, what exactly do you mean? And they can help you with that. Absolutely. But yeah, like Robert says, be very, very honest. With I don't really know.
And a
I've
lot
never
of times,
done that, but I've done some.
yeah, a
Go
lot
ahead.
of times interviewers are looking for that honesty, for that rapport.
Yeah, we always.
You hire more, as Pilar, you have experience hiring people. You sometimes hire more for personality than experience, because I always think I can teach people about projects and processes, but you really
Yeah.
can't change people's personality if they don't have a good personality, and that comes out in the interview.
Mm.
In addition to that Robert is mentioning is absolutely right. Um, we know that there's not 100% perfect match between the job and the candidate. There's always an opportunity. There's always something, and we're looking for that space that we said, okay, this candidate fits maybe 65, 70% of the job, but they have the potential and the capability to learn with what they share with us with this. And that's a lot of the interview to say, yeah, but this person can learn it and can actually grow within the company. So like Robert says, be very, very honest and say, no, but I've learned this and I've done this, etc.
Mm. Okay, another great question. What if the interviewer creates stress during the interview to see how you handle stress?
Well, and that tends to be a little bit of that. We do want to make sure that the person can handle that. We don't want to, we already know that it's stressful, but we do want to make sure that the person can handle that. When I interview and I first said, I'm going to do a structured behavioral interview, and they go like, what is that? And I say, well, I'll explain it to you. And we just want to put a little bit of pressure, not too much, because we already know that you're nervous, but it's on purpose. It's on purpose to make sure that you can actually handle it. Sometimes, if it's an IT company that is going to be very fast-paced, very quick, etc., we want to make sure that the candidate can handle that type of pressure. So practice, again, practice.
Okay. Any other questions from the Q&A? Let's look here and see if we have, okay. I loved the story about you guys knowing within the first 15 seconds if the person's right for the job or not, and then spending the rest of the hour convincing yourself. So,
well, fortunately, and we are humans too. On the other side, we are humans, and we do have all kinds of biases. There's a whole training that we do for interviewers, how to interview and how to be aware of your own personal biases, the contrast effect, etc. There's a lot of things there to make sure that you are very objective, candidate by candidate. The candidate in the morning is going to get a little more energy than the candidate at 4:30 when you're thinking, I've got to go already. So, you got to pace it, and you got to be very aware as an interviewer of your own biases. So, but we do tend to have that first impression, and it's all about first impressions. Think about what Martha was sharing with us, the body language, the tone, how do you approach the person, the body language, the position, etc. There's a lot of communication that you can bring. And again, we recommend that you go back to the previous sessions to see how these build up from finding the job to the resume to networking to the interview, where you can build these skills on top of each other. So yeah, you do want to check that.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is never let your guard down.
Yeah.
Especially when Pilar, you were talking about, and I think Barb, you asked about multiple interviews. Everybody is interviewing you, and you are being interviewed. Don't, and the reason I say don't let your guard down is sometimes people are very personable, and kind of you feel very comfortable about sharing information. Remember, you're being interviewed, and hold back a little, because and the reason I say that is because we had a great candidate that interviewed extremely well, and then he went to lunch with someone in the department. In lunch, and this is before the pandemic, obviously. In the lunch, he felt very comfortable, and they started having a conversation, and he revealed some things that were somewhat inappropriate. They caused some doubt. So it was a totally different person that went to lunch, and as a result, we didn't give him the job, although he interviewed really well because he was very sharp and answered the questions in a more casual setting. Unfortunately, he wasn't the right candidate for the job. So always think, even if they're follow-up interviews, even if you because as an interviewer, you're trying to make the person feel very comfortable and sharing as much of their life as possible, without, obviously, as Pilar says, without asking inappropriate questions.
We're peeling the onion. Remember, we're peeling the onion one at a time. We're really trying to get to the core of the person. And it does happen. They interview beautifully and then they walk out. There was somebody, and I remember reading about, I think it was in the oil and gas industry, one of the tycoons in the oil and gas, that would bring the candidate to lunch. And if the candidate would put salt in the food before tasting it. Nope. Who was that? Literally, that was the test. It was, if they put salt in the food before they taste it, wouldn't hire. Because
and the other thing, be very nice to everyone that you interact with in the company, from the parking attendant to the front office receptionist, because everybody's watching you and everybody's giving feedback. And
I had codes already, keywords with the receptionist. Even just like a wink here and a wink there. when you bring the candidates, she had a candidate. We had a candidate that walked in and was so rude to her because you didn't give me the directions properly and I'm late, and she just went, okay, that was it. So you are being interviewed from the second you leave the house, on the time, with the receptionist, with everybody, because it's a team. They want to make sure that you are going to fit with them. It's the culture of the company. And sometimes, when I was living in the Middle East, I would not interview a candidate without my team. I would do the initial interview, and I would bring that person, and we would do a panel interview, because I wanted to make sure, because we had different religions, different dynamics, all kinds of things, that the person would actually fit. And yeah, you do it. You gotta make sure that you fit. Remember, it's like getting married blindfolded. You're gonna spend more time at work than at home.
Great information, guys. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We could stay here all afternoon talking about interviewing. But thank you so much, Pilar. We really enjoyed all the stories and all the anecdotes, and great information. Just want to remind everybody.
Thank you. Best luck, everybody.
I just want to remind everyone that's on this call that Jim Sherm, the Greater Miami Society for Human Resources Management, is our partner in these recordings. And these recordings are available to you at our website, churchbythesea.org. Please go back, review them, or share the link with anyone who needs this information. We want to thank Jim Sherm. We want to thank Church by the Sea for making all of this possible. What else do I want to let you know? That on Thursday, this coming Thursday, Pilar will share this same information with us at 10 o'clock in the morning in Spanish. So again, share the link, come back, support us. Thank you all for giving us your time. Again, thank you, Pilar. Great information. Thank you, Robert, for being with us. And hopefully we will see you again on Thursday. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Best of luck. Thank you.